Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with another episode of Kicking Aces here in World of Tanks. And today we are in a Tier 10 battle, standard battle on Erlenberg. And we can see that the matchmaker has not been kind to us, as half the enemy team just about is Tier 10. And the enemy team also has a couple more Tier 10s than we do on the green team as well. So at the start of the battle, before I get myself into position, I'm trying to gather some information on the enemy team. And I'm looking for things like the number of artillery, and in this case I note 3 artillery pieces on each team, so arty is going to be a factor, which is something you want to be aware of, especially when you're in a very lightly armored tank, as I am, which I'll get into in a moment. And then I'm also looking for platoons, where the platoons are on the enemy team, what tanks they're driving, and in this case the enemy team has 5 IS-7s, very heavily armored Russian heavy tanks, and there's a group of 3 IS-7s in a first platoon and 2 more IS-7s in a second platoon. So I know that if I see an IS-7 in this battle, it's probably going to have backup, and I need to be very careful when engaging them. So we're getting into position here. I am in the Tier 9 German turreted tank destroyer, the Waffenträger Panzer IV, and I'm climbing the hill here. The friendly E-50 on our team has spotted the enemy, and then he's pulled back as he tries to relocate to get himself into position. And I've got a nice little setup here where I'm pretty far away from the enemy. I've got my camo net up, I've got my binoculars up, and I'm now the eyes on these enemies. As you can see, I'm getting the spotted damage, or the assistance damage, for hits that are going into these enemy tanks, including a big hit from our artillery that splashed both of those IS-7s. So we found the IS-7s. We know this is a group that's going to be working together, but thankfully they can't see us right now, even when we're firing our gun. So we have a great opportunity here into the side of these IS-7s, and we're able to do some nice damage to these dangerous Tier 10 enemy tanks. So what we're trying to do now is we've kind of got ourselves in the sweet spot. We are spotting, we're doing damage, and we're not detected in return, which is kind of the dream for this tank. And what I am driving is the Waffenträger Panzer IV. It's the big brother of the Borsig. It leads to the Waffenträger E100. And it is a tank that is very, very poorly armored, to the point of almost having no armor on it at all, but it has a very dangerous gun. It can choose between 128mm or a 150mm, and I have the top tier 128mm package unlocked on this tank. So I'll put the stats for the guns up here so you can see the choice between the 2 top guns, but for me, the 128mm is the one I've had more success with. I will talk a little bit more about strength and weaknesses of each of the guns in a little bit. But as you can see right now, this is perfect. We're still remaining still with the chassis. Because we have a turret, we can keep our camo net activated, keep our binoculars up. We're keeping these enemies spotted, we're getting some nice assistance damage, and we're having a great impact on the game. Now I switched to high explosive here because those IS-7's turrets are pretty tough to get through. And then we had an opportunity on an E-50. It's a Tier 9 German medium tank, and I kept the high explosive loaded. I was hoping I could track him. High explosive is good for removing tracks because of its higher potential damage, but we weren't able to do so, so we're going to switch back down to our regular armor-piercing rounds. So we're going to continue to do work here. I try to use the right ammo when I can throughout this battle. Now sometimes I'll have something loaded, and I'm not going to not take a shot just because there'd be a better ammo choice, but we're trying to stick with the armor piercing. The Waffenträger 4 has plenty of penetration for almost every situation. Of course, the IS-7's turret is pretty good and might be the exception to the rule. That's something that we're not going to be able to get through reliably. So I have a high explosive round loaded here, trying to splash his turret, and I do. It wasn't quite enough to kill him, but immediately after my hit, one of the friendlies on my team was able to take the last couple of hit points off that IS-7 and remove him from the game. So we're up 3-0. We're having a really great impact on this flank. We've got 1 kill. We've got 10 assistance damage hits that have popped up on the notifications tab as well, so things are going pretty well. And again, right now, it's not exciting medium tank play where you're flanking and running around, but if you're playing a tank destroyer, especially this one, this is kind of what you want to get your best games, where you can kind of nestle in, let the gun do its work, not get spotted, and not take hits in return. So here we can see one of the IS-7s is backing up, and we had a great shot into his rear, and we just do damage to the tracks there, probably some module damage. And for the first time we get spotted, so we're going to pull back, get out of the way, let that E100, there's the big brother for me, pull back as well, and there was one of those big old artillery shells singing in over our head. Thankfully it missed. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come back up, and again, I have a shot at the IS-7, so we're going to let this one rip. And oh, that was a nice hit. Almost 600 damage into the side of that tank. That was beautiful. And now, so one of the things that I found out very quickly about the Waffenträger Panzer IV is that it has terrible, terrible gun depression over the front of the tank. And early on in the battle, we were kind of angled with our tank pointing down the slope, so it wasn't a big deal. We could get our gun on target. But now I'm trying to use this fallen tree as protection, as camo, and so the front of the tank's not angled perfectly to get the gun down. So what I'm doing is I'm reversed, and I'm aiming over the back. The gun depression over the sides, and especially the rear of this tank, are much, much better. So, and the other advantage is that when you're reversed, you can get yourself out of trouble more quickly. So if I get spotted and I'm going to retreat down the hill, I'll be doing so driving forwards, which is much faster than driving backwards. So very often you'll see Waffenträger Panzer IVs poking out backwards when they're doing their sniping or their their gunnery battles. They'll come out backwards because it exposes less of the tank and it gets the gun depression improvement, and then you can drive forward much more quickly to get yourself out of trouble once you've let your shot rip and you're doing your reload. So again, now we're looking at an E100, very, very well armored German heavy tank, tier 10 heavy tank. So we have our high explosive loaded here. I'm really not expecting to be able to get through this tank. He would have to present me, especially at this range, with a completely flush shot, probably at his turret, and that's just not reliable. He's mostly behind this building, so I'm thinking, alright, I'll keep the high explosive loaded, maybe I'll track him, but as long as I can put this shell on the tank, I'll do some damage, and that's better than doing no damage or bouncing. So, we got the high explosive loaded, we're looking to thread a shot here, and again, as long as I can hit, it will do damage. Boy, that's a thin shot. He's mostly behind that building, so we're going to hold off for a better opportunity. But this flank is going very well. We're up 7-2, and this is turning out great. Now here it looks like I might have a shot, so we're going to try and aim in. We'll let this one go, and oh, just sailed over the tank. So this is one of the reasons why I choose the 128mm. If I had fired a 150mm shell there and just missed, my reload would be twice as long. I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity to fire there. Now, 67 damage certainly isn't anything impressive for a high explosive shell, but again, it's still damage, and that's the exception. That E100's armor is so thick, and it was angled so well. Usually you can expect to do at least 100 damage, and sometimes 2 or 3, depending on what you're shooting at and where you hit it with that high explosive shell. So now we've shifted a little bit to the north. It looks like the southern flank is 1, or is very close to 1, and I'm going to try and support up here. There's an ISU 152. It's a Russian tier 8, I believe, tank destroyer with no turret, and he's engaging with a medium tank on our team. They're kind of having a little duel here. I'm trying to provide some supporting fire, and this gun constantly trolls me. Again, not a great shot there. That wasn't one I expected to go in, but it would have been nice. So we're almost reloaded. We're going to try and thread another shot here through the rubble. And oh, did that one bounce? Looks like it did, but once again, we're getting some assistance damage. So again, we're not being completely useless. We are still providing some support here, and if one of these shells go in, that'll really turn the tide here. And there we go. As the ISU turned his front towards our medium tank, we were able to put one directly into him, and now he has just a tiny sliver of health left. And as soon as he goes down, it looks like we'll have the northern flank one, and we can advance on the enemy and begin the cleanup phase of the battle. So that one sails a little high, but the ally on my team does remove those last couple of hit points, and now we're in good shape. So the 128mm, as I said, it fires almost twice as fast as the 150, and for me, that is the key to the gun. I have enough shots that are frustrating because they're a near miss, or they go into the track, that using the 150mm is just a bit too frustrating for me. Sure, it's nice when you connect and you get that nice big 750 or plus alpha damage, but to me, it's more valuable to have a second shot go out soon. That way, if you miss, it's not as devastating of a loss, because you're reloaded twice as fast, and your next shot can get onto the target very quickly. If you're the type of player that you're great with your accuracy, every shot you fire seems to go where you want it to, then yeah, you'll probably have a lot of success with the 150mm, because you'll be getting that increased alpha damage, and you'll really be able to punish your enemies with each shot that goes in. But if, like me, you seem to have a little bit of trouble, especially at long range with your accuracy, I would recommend the 128mm. It seems to be more consistent, more reliable throughout the course of the game and the grinding of the tank. So one of the advantages to the Waffenträger Panzer IV over the Borsig is its mobility. And now it's no medium tank, it's not zipping around the battlefield by any means, but if I was in a Borsig, I probably would be done with this battle. It's so slow and so immobile that any other tank on your team is going to get to the remaining enemies and clean them up before you're able to. But, you know, we're humming along here at 30, 35, depending on the slope and the terrain or whatnot. And we're leading the charge here on this flank, trying to find these last 2 remaining artillery and last 2 remaining tank destroyers on the enemy team. So it can be a more consistent performer. In the Borsig, you need to have this perfect storm of everything go just right. You're playing defense and the enemy is kind of training into you, and you can just keep your guns singing and remove them. But you're not really able to hunt them down if you're winning the battle. That was one of the frustrations. If we had a great battle and I was in the Borsig, I didn't have a great battle because the team would advance and roll up the enemy so fast that I wouldn't be able to keep up. But the Waffenträger 4 is much better at that. So we know these last 4 tanks are going to be down here in this corner. We've got them penned in. We're going to see what we can find here. There's the T110E3. That's the American Tier 10 non-turreted tank destroyer. And he's got a really big gun, so we'll put one into his side, and then we'll get behind the castle here to prevent a big hit from coming into us. And he's removed, and we get the assistance damage for that spot as well. And now we're going to work our way around the castle. We can see there's one of the remaining artillery, the GW Tiger P. Friendly put one into him, and I get the kill, which is great. And now I'm at full speed. I'm in a turn, and that artillery was still able to splash me and remove my tracks. I repair them. Probably didn't need to, but I want to get a little more damage in here if I can. And here's the gun depression. Look, I'm pointing down, I'm pointing down, I'm pointing down. Can I get the gun on target? Yes, I can. Let it aim. Oh, that was a heartbreak. I rushed that a little bit too quickly. I was worried another ally was going to put the shot in before I could, and I should have given it another half second of aim, and I could have had a 4th kill there. But still a great result for this tank. And as we can see here, 15,000 total experience. Now, of course, part of that was for the Winter Warfare op. You got 10,000 for completing that. But you can see almost 4,000 damage and almost 4,000 assistance damage, which is my highest combined total of damage in any tank in any game, including my T-57 Heavy. That was just a monster performance. The assistance damage really, really racked up. And we get an ace tanker, something I never was able to accomplish completely grinding through the Borsig. I never had an ace tanker. I don't even think I ever had a first class mastery badge in that tank, but we secure a big one here in the Waffenträger Alf Panzer IV. And here we can see it's all these tier 10s that we were doing damage to and spotting, a couple of 9s and 8s in there as well, but most of it was tier 10 damage, tier 10 assistance. So that racked up the experience and the credits very, very quickly. What a great game. So that's the key. If you're looking to play this tank, if you're looking to play it well, that's the situation what you want to be in, where you can see the enemy and you can get shots on the enemy without them getting shots on you in return. And the assistance damage on top of that was just gravy. And we had a really great result on the battle there. I mean, that southern flank had, I think, all 5 of the IS-7s were down there, or a lot of those tier 10 heavies were down there. And because we were able to light them up, our artillery was able to put in some great work. We were able to secure that flank and eventually secure the game. 1,713 base experience points, just a monster for our 3 kills and our 3,850 damage and close to 4,000 spotting damage as well. Accuracy on that game was not great. We were at pretty long range, so I'm not too disappointed with it, but 25 shots fired and only 18 hits. Not fantastic, but 15 of those 18 did penetrate, which for a tier 10 game, I'll take it. Again, it's not excellent marksmanship, but it was a good result. So hopefully that was an enjoyable battle for me. Again, it's a little bit different. I don't put a lot of tank destroyer videos up because they're not quite as dynamic as the medium tank and sometimes the heavy tank gameplay. It's not really my specialty. I love the mediums. They fit with me very well. But I dabble in some of the other tanks, and I wanted to get something up that was a little bit different, and it was such a monster result. I really wanted to share it. I had a great time. My heart was really pumping during the battle when I saw how much assistance damage I was racking up there. So hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, feel free to give it a like. I really appreciate it. And if you want to stay tuned for more, be up to date on the latest videos as they come out, you can subscribe to the link that I have up on the screen now. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.